the Folsom Prison Experience. It's coming, well, not that long from now, about a week and a half from now. Pablo Center at the Confluence in downtown Eau Claire. Have you ever been to Pablo Center before?
This will be our first time there.
Okay, it's a really nice place. I've been to a bunch of shows there. I'm in a choir that's sung there before. It's absolutely gorgeous. You are really going to like being in that venue. What made you to decide to recreate this particular performance? As well known as it is, why did you decide to go for just what became Live at Folsom Prison?
Well, just to start back a little bit further, I have a band called Church of Cash, and we are a world-class international touring Johnny Cash tribute show that's been around for a number of years. And I've worked a lot with my good friend Tom Pickard, who owns a few venues in the Midwest. And from time to time, if I played his venue and after the show, we'd discuss about this high-minded idea of creating a show called the Folsom Prison Experience, where you're literally recreating the events of the day of 1968 when Johnny Cash played at Folsom Prison. Well, being that I'm a touring musician and he's a very busy club owner, we didn't have the time until the pandemic rolled around, and he no longer had business, and neither did I. So we decided this is our grand opportunity to get together and brainstorm this thing called Folsom Prison Experience. What we're trying to do is take that day, take the facts of the day, what Johnny Cash was going through, what was happening at that show. We did a lot of research, got a lot of behind-the-scenes information, facts, if you will, about that day, and incorporated them into the show. We're trying to give the audience something I pretty much know for a fact they weren't there unless they committed some awful crime in 1960s.
What would be, and given that you've done enough research on this, the casual person's not going to know all of the details, but what would be, shall I say, what are like the surprising things you picked up on? Like, okay, audience is not going to know this. They're going to pick up on it when they watch the show, but they wouldn't know it from having listened to the album, which is probably the only way most people know it, other than just knowing that there was a Live from Folsom Prison.
I'll give you a couple, and they're in the show also, but a couple of some of maybe the smaller things. Johnny Cash's divorce from his first wife, Vivian, was finalized on that very day, which kind of gives you a little bit of the insight of what Johnny Cash was going through while he was performing at Folsom Prison. When that album was recorded on January 13th, 1968, it wasn't just one show. It was two separate shows in the afternoon, if you will, and they cobbled together a 10-song record from there. But you can imagine, if you remember the record, and it starts off with this: "Hello, I'm Johnny Cash," and then everybody applauds. Well, how do you do that? I mean, normally when a person steps out on the stage, people start applauding right away. You're going to need some kind of an MC of the day, and his name was Hugh Cherry, and he was a radio guy from Los Angeles that was basically just running the show, interacting with the audience. We know a lot of these facts by researching the record via Spotify. Spotify has what they call the Legacy Edition, and they broadcast all 3 hours of that show. So you can hear Hugh Cherry talking to the inmates, letting them know to cheer real loud because they're going to be on the record. So we're taking parts of those facts of Hugh Cherry and incorporating it into the show, which works great for this production because it communicates to the audience. And you got to understand, now the audience is not just an audience now in 2024. We are now in 1968. The audience are now inmates at Folsom Prison. And, you have Hugh Cherry there communicating to the inmates, kind of letting them know what this is all about, what we kind of expect. And the audience is already starting getting an idea of who Hugh Cherry is, what Johnny Cash is going through, and how much of a hated person the warden is.
So what's when people sit down and it is showtime, how does it get started? What's the hook as it gets going?
Well, not to give away too much of it, because I hope your audience can come out and see us on the 27th there at Pablo. It starts off kind of, let me just put it this way. it starts off as if you were there. You can imagine, it wasn't like a concert back in the day. This was at a cafeteria in Folsom Prison. So the inmates are filing in, and the fellows are doing a sound check to make sure everything is running right. The guys are still putting the cymbals on the drums, and that's kind of how we're setting up. The production begins without the audience member really knowing it's beginning, if you will. So there's interaction with the guards and the audience, and then all of a sudden this thing starts happening on stage. And a lot of times the audience is it really starting, or what's going on? And I think it kind of gets you in the mode of, yes, you are an inmate. You're watching this show. It's not a high glossy production. There was no lights or anything. It's literally Johnny Cash put a few speakers out there and a microphone, and they let the show rip.
Wow. So what would be your favorite, if you have, a favorite performance of any of the songs from either of the shows that day? Do you have one particular performance of his that really stands out that you really appreciate?
Yes, one of my favorites is when he performs a song, "Peace in the Valley." Now, it's a slower gospel number. And you can realize, I've been performing these songs for many years with my touring Church of Cash band, so I'm very familiar with the music. But in particular, this song called "Peace in the Valley," beautiful gospel number. I'm joined on stage by the Statler Brothers and June. And so you can imagine there's 4 or 5 voices singing this beautiful gospel song together. I think it's very touching the way Johnny Cash did it in 1968. And I really try to recreate that same kind of vibe and feeling during the Folsom Prison Experience.
Funny thing is, as I was driving back to the radio station earlier today, I was listening to one of our sister stations in this building, and Jackson was playing on the drive, and I thought, well, what timing is this? This is perfect timing. What's the key to trying to recreate all of these other well-known folks? I mean, obviously June Carter Cash, the Statler Brothers have been active for a long time. So how do you get all of those? It's like this multiple layers of tribute acts for all these different levels. How do you strive to get that as accurate as possible?
Well, Luke, this is not a small production. This is a very, in my opinion, large production. Now we have unreal talent on this stage. First of all, June Carter is played by the infamous Kat Perkins of The Voice fame. She tours with Kid Rock. I mean, she's a major player and an unbelievable singer/actress. She nails the June thing. And I'm beyond excited to share the stage with her. She's very, very good. On the Statler Brothers stage, we have the band called Hitchville, and they've been around for many years, and they're wonderful singers. They really take this role seriously and perform just like the Statler Brothers. That's just the musical side. And, of course, we have the Church of Cash band we're time-tested, award-winning Johnny Cash band. But beyond that, we have actors. We have an actor that plays the Hugh Cherry part. We have an actor that plays the warden, the hated warden. And we have 2 guards, like they're kind of head guards, if you will, that kind of create a comic relief during the show. So there is obviously a lot of music, about 70% Johnny Cash music. There is about 30% drama. So some of the drama is the love story between June and Johnny. Of course, there is the butting of heads between the warden, who everybody hates, and Johnny Cash, who everybody loves. And also you have Hugh Cherry, who is the MC, but he's also the shill of the record label. He's the one that is trying to keep the show on task for the record label. So there is a bit of tension between Johnny and Hugh Cherry also. But beyond that, there's a plot that goes through the whole thing that comes to a head at the very end to bring the whole thing together. It's a very exciting, brand new Johnny Cash experience that any fan of Johnny Cash and or even musical theater would enjoy.
Last question. Having done this for as long as you have, what is the key to really doing an accurate impersonation of Johnny Cash?
Well, I think, first of all, it is a bit of the God-given talent of the low voice. I've heard other people try to sing Johnny Cash when they don't really have the low voice for it. And so the lower register comes, and I guess it's the same thing. If you asked me to sing some Led Zeppelin, I wouldn't sound very good because I don't have a great high register. But I think it's the same thing if you have a high register voice and you sing the low notes. It just sounds airy and it doesn't sound meaty like Johnny Cash does. So I am a low singer. I can handle all those notes that Johnny Cash could sing. But beyond that, what it takes is a person to really understand the song. A person can get real technical. Am I singing the right notes at the right length of time? But in the end, you're trying to convey the story of which Johnny Cash wrote, or something that he took from another person, and take those words, that story, and be compelling enough that the audience could understand it, visualize it themselves, and take them on that musical journey. I think the voice and able to understand the song and being compelling enough that the audience can come along with is the most important part.
Well, we're going to see it in person Saturday, January 27th here in the Chippewa Valley Pablo Center at the Confluence, the Folsom Prison Experience. Ernest, a.k.a. Johnny Cash. Thank you for taking time to chat about this. This is going to be a great show, and the audience is going to love it. And anyone listening to this, dress like an inmate. It's probably the best way I can put it, and have a lot of fun at the show. Jay, thanks for taking time to chat today, and have fun at the show.
My pleasure, Luke. Thank you very much for having me.